Ready? Yeah. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Healthy Cooking with Shayda. I'm your host, and today we have a special guest for you. Well, actually, two very special guests. We are continuing our topic of conversation about food addiction with John Pierre, but today we also have Rebecca Martinez joining us to talk about her struggles and what she's going through, and how JP has helped her to overcome a lot of those, I don't know, she calls them monsters, but I think she's doing a great job. She's lost a lot of weight, and I can't wait for her to share her journey and her story with you guys. Before we get started, there's a couple of things that I wanted to mention. First, if you have not subscribed to our YouTube channel, please consider doing so. And please make sure you share this video with all your friends and family. Secondly, if you guys want to ask questions to Rebecca or to John Pierre, please do so. Erin is here. And if you could start your questions with 3 question marks and then your question and then end it with 3 question marks. That way Erin can find it much easier. And at the end of the show, when we want to go and answer your questions, we can do so. Last time we were here with JP, you guys had some questions for us and we did not get a chance to go through them. So we have about 4 questions that John Pierre and I are going to go through, and we're going to answer your questions, and then we're going to go and meet our dear guest Rebecca and find out about her journey. JP, welcome to the show. Rebecca Martinez, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having us, and thank you for all the great work you're doing, Shayda, for getting this information out to everyone. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. So JP, just to continue and recap a little bit about what you talked about last week, can you just recap a little bit about what we were talking about last week?
Sure. Well, we were focusing on addiction, particularly food addiction. And I gave you lots of different strategies to help counter that. And one of the main things that I said that many of you have heard over and over again, but you need to keep hearing it until you do it, is you need to sanitize your environment. So you need to keep those temptations away from you. And if that means getting your own refrigerator and in the garage or a mini fridge somewhere, then that's fine. You need to do that. That may even mean just putting your kids' foods or your husband's foods or your wife's food in brown paper bags in the fridge so you don't see it. That would be an alternative, but the idea is not to have any of those foods around, because once you see that piece of chocolate cake or whatever it is that tempts you, once you have a visual on it, you're locked in, like a missile would lock in on a target, and you're going to be driving to work thinking about it. You're going to be at work thinking about it. You're going to be picking up the kids thinking about it all day long. You're going to be thinking about it. And I can guarantee you, not only will you be thinking about it, but at the end of the day, when you're weak and tired, you'll be eating that food you shouldn't be eating. And then that starts the downward spiral. So it's like sanitizing your environment is one of the first things that we have to do. We also talked about don't dance with the devil. So once you start dancing with the devil and you take a little bit, I'm just going to have a tiny piece of that cake, just a little bit of it, forget it. You're in the grasp of the devil. You're not getting out. It's going to be a dance that you're not going to be happy with. And I've told people this countless times, but when I work with people who are drug addicts, alcoholics, when they get out of rehab, I don't go pick them up and say, let's go throw darts at the local pub. Of course, we're not going to drink, but we'll just throw darts. That's just setting them up for temptation. And I would never say to them, hey, congratulations for getting out of rehab. Why don't we just go, you can have a drink and, maybe just have a sip. Nobody would say that, because that's dancing with the devil and you can't do that. So that was my second important pointer. And the third one is make sure that you find some sort of dopamine blast, some sort of pleasure juice, if you will call it, that's not food related. So make a list of different activities that you can do that bring you pleasure and start engaging in them more frequently, as long as they're safe and they're not going to be an addiction. And so then you start having pleasure outside of the kitchen. And one of the things I taught on my Zoom series from the johnpierre.com site is when I talked about addiction on that very first video, I said, look, you can have 3 dopamine blasts a day from food. You can have breakfast, lunch, and dinner, but then the rest of your pleasure has to come from life. And if you're not doing that, you're setting yourself up for more addiction. So those were 3 of the main things that we talked about. We also mentioned how important it is to stay educated on addiction, on foods, on fitness. but also it's important to have a buddy or a support group. And that's why, Shayda, it's so important what you're doing, because you're allowing everyone to have support here, and people can get together and learn from other people. And that's important because, someone like yourself and Rebecca, who've been through the ringer, you guys were really overweight, you had health conditions, you had issues cognitively with your emotional, lack of control, and you built yourself up from rags to riches. That's actually far better, what you teach and you as an example, than I am, because I only have the science behind that and the know-how, but you lived it and you overcame it yourself. So you guys really have a lot of information to share. And so I really commend you for, you and Aaron, who helps put this on, for going through all this extra work that you do to get this information out to the public. So thank you for that.
Oh, my pleasure. And we couldn't have done any of this without you. And you're right. If Erin wasn't here, I don't know what I'd do without her. So a huge shout out to Erin for helping me to put this show on for you guys, 2 or 3 times a month. So I'm going to get started on the questions, because I really want to go through these rather quickly, because I can't wait to hear Rebecca's story, and I want to talk to Rebecca. So the first question is all sugar addictive? White, brown, coconut, maple, sugar, dates, is all of that addictive?
Well, it's on a continuum. It depends how much there is in there and how susceptible you are. But yeah, because sugar is not found in nature isolated. Like you don't have sugar cane juice in nature. If you want to get a piece of sugar cane 6 inches big, it's going to take you a week to chew through it. And it's bound with fiber and minerals, so it's not going to be as addictive as if you were having it isolated as sugarcane juice. Same thing with white sugar from beets or corn syrup. All those things are going to hijack and hijack your brain. And again, you're dancing with the devil. Once your brain gets stimulated like that, it's going to be very difficult for you to go from, you're at 70 miles an hour. Now you get on the side ramp, you take the exit, and now you're going down the side street. You're supposed to be doing 35 and you're doing 50, and you feel like you're going slow because you were doing 70 or 75. It's the same thing when you're eating refined sugar. It doesn't matter where it's from. Even if it's fruit juice and you're just getting the isolated sugar from the fruit, it's still not bound with the fiber. It doesn't have the water. It doesn't have the vitamins and minerals. So yes, it's going to be addictive. But to what degree, that all depends on your level of susceptibility.
And I also think it depends on how much of it you're going to be consuming.
Absolutely. The volume that you're going to have. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that I agree. Because, as good as dates are, one could totally overeat on that.
Well, I don't know many people who just eat one date, and dates are a whole food and they're wonderful food, but they're a little bit toward the exception of fruits because they're so concentrated in sugar that they do cause you to, have a tendency to overeat. That's why when we talked about last time, you made the date balls and all that stuff with coconut. And I said, you really need to stop that because it was really just it was a fireworks show for your brain, which you created because you created super high fat and super high sugar, and it's just forget it.
Yeah, no, I agree. So thank you for that. Our next question is, after years of whole food plant-based SOS free, does the addiction ever go away if you eat something non-compliant?
It depends on everybody, but not really, because again, you're lighting up the brain. So it's kind of like if you haven't had a massage in 10 years and then you get a massage, don't you keep wanting a massage?
Absolutely.
Yeah, because now you remember what it was like 10 years ago when you got a massage. So no, I mean, it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. What the problem is it's an artificial thing that stimulates the brain in a way that it's not supposed to be stimulated. So that's dancing with the devil, though, when you want to play that game.
And I think that devil is, I don't know about most people, but for me, I think that devil is constantly on our shoulders and is just sitting there waiting and flexing its muscle and doing push-ups until the one day that we decide that we're going to go, dance with him, and then he just takes over. So to me, it's not, I know, I totally agree. The third question was, what about foods that have sugar as the last ingredient on the list?
Well, again, it's the dosage. So the last ingredient's the least amount. So it depends how susceptible you are to it and what the product is. The problem is a lot of times when they say sugar as the last ingredient, many times previous or up closer toward the top, there's other sugars. They just don't call it sugar. They may call it a different name. They may say, like, for instance, corn syrup. It may say corn syrup, right? Or mannitol or xylitol or stevia. And then they throw in, I've seen some ingredients where there was 4 different types of sugars in the ingredients and all labeled differently. So they're just disguising it. So it depends what that product is and how susceptible you are to it. If you were eating, say, whole grain bread, like sprouted bread, and the last ingredient was sugar, well, that's not going to be obviously as bad as if you were eating some sort of cookie that was white flour and this and that, and then sugar to the end.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So the last question is for me, and they said, Shayda, have you found it hard to maintain the healthy habits you've built with JP? And no, because I'm continually using the tools and the toolboxes that he's given me to continue to do this. And no, so I'm maintaining it pretty darn well. And you have to let it become a lifestyle. You can't just do it for an X amount of time. So because I've let it become truly a lifestyle for me, I don't even think about it. I just do it. So that's my thought on that. I want to thank you, JP, for all those. And so let's give a proper welcome to Rebecca. Today, she is with us. She has struggled with her weight for most of her adult life. She is very aware of the food addiction monster, even though she has lost over 200 pounds. The day-to-day struggle is very real for her. I met Rebecca almost 11 years ago, and honestly, we have a very special bond. She is and always will be my little sister. And today we will hear her story and how, with the help of John Pierre, she is working through the process. So please help me welcome Rebecca Martinez to our show.
Hello. Thank you for having me here, Shayda. It's an honor, especially being here with you and JP and Aaron.
We're so happy you're here. So Rebecca, could you please take us through your journey and tell us about your story?
Okay, I'm sure a few people have heard this already, but basically, as you mentioned, I have been struggling with my weight for my entire adult life. And I dare say that even though I'm at a point where I've reached my goal, I still struggle. And I think that one of the keys to my success is that I finally stopped fighting it, thinking, oh, I'm going to get over it, and just realized, no, I'm going to live with it. I liken it to losing somebody dear to you. You never get over a loss. You just get on with it, and you figure out a new way to live with it and be aware of it. You know, I've always got an eye on it in the corner there, and I'm like, I'm watching you, but I'm also watching myself. But much like many people in this community, I think I had a food addiction problem from a very young age, but because I was very active and I had youth on my side back then, I was dancing and in sports and whatnot, I was able to keep the weight at bay. I started to get heavier and heavier as the exercise tapered off, and I met someone and we were dating, and you know, the advent of DVDs and cable and delivery of food, it was just a bad combination, perfect storm, if you will. A lot of food, watching TV, being lazy, not moving around. The weight started to creep up little by little by little, and I started to do everything I could. You name every packaged program, Nutrisystem, Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers. I bought the foods. I bought I don't even know what they're called, those frozen things that were horrible. And yeah, losing weight is easy. I will say that right now. I never thought I'd say it. It's keeping it off that is the hard part. I've lost weight so many times, I can't even tell you. But the struggle is real when it comes to keeping it off, because if you're not doing something that you can't sustain long term, you're not going to win. And that's one of the things that JP taught me was it's slow and steady wins the race. You know, I envision this turtle, you know, the tortoise and the hare story, and it's like the tortoise always wins because the tortoise is just on course, like you do, Shayda, with your laser beam focus. Mine is the same, but it's much slower and it took a lot longer. And JP knows it, and he'll explain it in a bit. It took me a while to kind of wake up or bud or whatever. I have gone through several chrysalis phases in my life, and I feel that I will never stop doing that. I think once I thought, just one, I'm done, that's what locked me into a bad pattern. But now that I'm embracing that I'm constantly going to change, I constantly need to stay on watch and be vigilant, but at the same time, don't be in a hurry to get there. The journey is lifelong. So I can talk more and more about my struggles. It's everything that everybody's been through. You are not alone. The mark of success for me is not how many times I've fallen down, but how many times I got back up. And it should always be at least one greater. So that's the short version of my story.
I could not agree with you more, and I totally resonate with everything that you have said. So I totally get it, Rebecca. And I've watched you in the last 11 years, and I am so proud of you for what you have done. It's not easy, and you are absolutely right. It is easy to lose weight, but maintaining it is hard. It takes a lot of work. It's a day to day. It's a meal by meal. It's a bite after bite. It really is. So I commend you for all your hard work and everything you're doing. And I'm sure JP is dying to get in on this conversation.
Yes, please.
Well, yeah. Before I ask you a question, people could start putting in the chat if they have questions for Rebecca. So if you have questions, go ahead and start.
Oh, absolutely. Please. And don't forget, put 3 question marks ahead of it and then 3 question marks at the end of it so that Aaron can find it easily so Rebecca can answer.
So what's interesting is you guys have a lot in common, obviously, Shayda and Rebecca. But one thing you have in common that's funny is when I first met Shayda, she pretty much ran after our first session. So you want to just briefly just tell that really quickly? Because I'll say this. I'll say this. I saw your mom after I did a session with you. I don't remember, it was a month later. And she said, "How come you abandoned my daughter?" And I said, "What? Your daughter never called me back after the first session." So why was that, Shayda? So people know, because they need to know this stuff is, is not easy.
Yeah, you're right. I did run, I did hide, and my mom called me out on it. And you're absolutely right. And I think it was because on the day that we met, we went hiking, and you just, you were just innocently talking, but you have a way to, when you're talking and asking questions, you just hit that spot that none of us want to open up about. It's a tough spot, and you hit on that, and that's when the tears just started coming. And it was just hard because you're actually making me realize and look at what's causing me to go through all this. And I had to face it. And I didn't want to face it. I kind of wanted to bury my head under the sand. And after our session, I'm like, "Oh, the heck with this. I'm not doing this anymore." And that's when, obviously, my mom came to you and called me out on it. And I'm glad that I listened to my mom and continued to work with you, because it was the best thing I've ever done. But it's not easy. It takes a lot of work.
And that's what I want people to understand, that it isn't easy. A lot of people will hear you talk with me on the show, and they call me up and they want to work with me. And a week later, they said, "Hey, I've been following your program for a week and I haven't lost the 12 pounds I was looking to lose." I was like, "What?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me?" Now, Rebecca, you had somewhat of a similar situation that do you want to just talk about, because this is important that people understand how scary this stuff is and how much work it is, but you kind of ran too.
I did. So I first had my session with you. It was gifted to me about, I'd say, 10 or 11 years ago. I can't remember. Maybe, I don't know. It's fuzzy memory. But it was a great session. Everything went well. I knew you were right. You were tapping into some areas. I did want to circle back to what Shayda said. You do have a way of pulling it out, but it is not in an unsafe way. I want everybody to understand that you don't make us do anything we don't want to do. You don't force us into a scary place. You bring us to that door and you give us the option of opening it to say, "Okay, this is yours to deal with. Only you can fix this." So you did that with me. You brought me to that space, and I knew it was there. And I was just like, "Oh, I don't want to deal with this. I think I'm going to run away from this," because I am notorious for pendulum swinging. That is my personality. The moment I'm not comfortable, my pendulum swings to, "Whoa, look, birdie, look, squirrel, oh, look, distraction." And that worked for me. It worked for a long time, but at the same time, it was to my detriment. I just wasn't ready. And you know what? When you're ready, you will open up. I kept in touch with you over the years. We had a couple of great sessions. A lot of things in my life, but you were always standing at the ready, willing to listen, and you always had this ability to, you still do, to feel something. You zoned in on a few things Shayda, you've always been my little big sister that I love and adore. But at the same time, for those of you who remember the Brady Bunch, I was Jan going, Marsha, Marsha, Marsha. Marsha's perfect. Marsha's this, Marsha's that. And you picked up on it. You called me on it right away. And I was just like, oh, how could I do that? And you have a way of sensing these things. And whenever I would approach you, JP, you were willing to talk. You would bring up, safe space. Let's talk. Let's go into it. And then you'd leave me to my own thoughts to figure it out. So the journey took a long time for me. I've watched Shayda, as my little big sister, is so successful, and I've been proud of her, and it's been awesome to have her as my resource. I've had everything at my disposal. It was just that I wasn't ready. My pendulum was swinging, and it took me some time. It actually was a life altering event for me. Literally, my relationship, marriage of 20 years or plus 10 years before, everything fell apart. And that's when I realized, well, time to stand up and quit drowning in a foot of water and figure out what I'm doing with my life. I did have some issues. I gained a little bit of weight, but then once I realized I don't need certain things anymore, including the ex-husband, the weight started to melt off again. And I said, okay, I'm now at a point where I'm ready to proceed. I found you again, 3 or 4 months ago, JP. I just happened to call you, and everything aligned. The planets were perfectly aligned, and I was able to hit that trajectory and launch myself into a new journey with you. And I dare say that it has made me stronger than I've been in a long time. And Shayda's right there. She's always been behind me, just kind of guiding me without me knowing she's guiding me. She's always been my training wheels without me knowing they're there. So it's I learned the food. I was trained the right way because, I worked for so long in that whole no processed food, no sugar, no oil, no salt, that whole environment. But now I'm working on the hard part. Why was I eating in the first place? The emotional part. So I ran away from you because I wasn't ready. And there's no right or wrong or no shame in that. It was just not my time yet. I think had I tried to tackle it then, something bad may have happened. So I'm glad that I am where I am now because I have a better assessment. I have a lot to look back on, and I'm much stronger for it.
Yes, really good.
Yeah. I always say when the student is ready, the teacher always appears. And I have to agree with Rebecca. JP makes such a safe environment for us, and he is so kind and loving and thoughtful that it's just a very safe environment. So, me running away was because I wasn't ready. It's just that's all it was. And once you're ready, he's right there to help.
So you both have overcome a lot and been extremely successful. How important would you say, the environmental control is, or sanitizing your environment? Has that been important for you, Shayda?
Oh, absolutely. I think that's key, because if the environment's not clean, it's not going to work. It'll keep pounding on my head. Like if there's chocolate in the house, I'll keep pounding on my head saying, oh my God, I want that chocolate. I want the chocolate. So no, the environment for me personally has been huge. And when if you come into this house, I don't care when you come, anytime you come, you can go through the house. I don't bring anything in, and I don't let anybody else bring anything into this house either. So this house is my sacred space, it's my safe space, and it's going to stay clean. But to me, it's not just about the house environment. To me, it's also my car. My car is my environment. My office is my environment. It's everywhere that I go. So that has to remain clean. And yes, it's very important.
And how's that work for you, Rebecca?
It's the same concept that I've learned what my triggers are, and I respect them. I don't have to like them. I just respect them. I'm not going to say what they are because I don't want to give anybody any thoughts, but basically I know what I can and cannot have in my environment. Now I'm currently living with some people that are neither plant-based nor do they avoid processed food. But luckily, because I'm plant-based, 90% of what they have, I can't eat anyway. So that's a protective mechanism. However, they will bring in some things that I can, and I just make sure to say, okay, well, enjoy your food. I'm going into my room. I'm not going to be a part of this. I will soon be moving into my own space, and I'm so excited about that because I will be in full control of my fridge, my cabinets, my environment. Like you say, Shayda, the car, my office, everything is clean. But with one of the things that you also taught us is delayed gratification. I've also learned that, let's just say I don't, something happens and I wind up indulging. I have learned through both the process of teaching myself to delay gratification and learn that I may not necessarily need it, to either have less of it, or if I do have some of it, to stop myself mid indulgence to say, okay, where are we at with this? Why are we doing this? And loving myself the whole time versus before, I would be bad mouthing myself. My internal audience would just be giving myself so much shame that it was almost downplaying the experience. So it's like, well, if you're in there, you might as well just say, look, I'm going to enjoy this for the moment that I'm here, and I'm going to do the very first thing I can once I step out of it. So I have learned how to love myself through it if it happens, because I am never going to be perfect. The one thing I have also embraced is that there is balance in life, and I need to learn how to, like you teach us with physical fitness activity, if you have a misstep or you stumble or you trip, catch yourself. So I catch myself. One meal has been one meal for me, and I've done it a few times over since we started seeing each other, JP, and I jump right back out of it. And I look back like, who is that chick? What did she really just come out of that and throw broccoli into her mouth the very next meal? The old me would have done a perfectly, executed swan dive off the wagon and said, well, I'm just going to hate myself even more and throw more and more food to see how high I can raise the bar.
Right.
So it works keeping, but at the end of the day, it's important for me to keep my triggers out of my environment, because it is something that is real and it will talk to me at night, especially when my emotional stability gets knocked down. And that happens with life. The world is crazy right now. It's heartbreaking what's going on. Family issues, work issues, you name it, things that happen, people that you love get sick, and it hurts you and it makes you weak. So you've got to do everything you can to increase your chances for success.
Right. Perfectly said. And, it's important to realize that what you're talking about is when you fall, a lot of people, when they stumble, it's like in their brain that, oh my God, I ate a piece of chocolate. Now I'm going to eat all the chocolate. And it's kind of like if you went to a relative's house and they were serving you tea and you dropped your teacup and you broke it. And then you went and said, well, since I broke one teacup, I'm going to go break all your teacups.
Break them all.
Right. It's like such a crazy mentality. It's like you break the teacup, you apologize, clean it up, and get on back to your tea with your relative.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing when you have a misstep, no big deal. And maybe you could talk a little bit more, because as you know, both of you know, the whole core of what I teach is compassion and love. And that word ahimsa, which is a Sanskrit term meaning compassion and reverence for all expressions of life. And of course, that includes yourself. So the last two chapters in my book, The Pillars of Health, that's what we focus on. Can you just talk a little bit, Rebecca, about how the work that we've done together in terms of self-love has kind of made a major difference in the way you see things and the way you react?
Absolutely. So one of the things that I did share with you is that I'm sure, much like many of us, childhood trauma, that is where a lot of this stems from. And I go back to when I was 8 years old. That's where a lot of this happened. I had something happen to me that changed the course of my life. And that is when I started to sleepwalk and wake up with food in my bed and became more aware of midnight snacks, and food was gratification and food made you feel good. And since your family is not loving you, well, the food will love you. And that was part of my, I talked to you, I didn't want to deal with that. So I put it away. The pendulum was swinging. I've recently, within the last few months with you, we've started to tackle reparenting the inner child. We're looking at self-soothing, and you had me do this amazing thing with an exercise, putting the picture in the middle, and I'm talking to her and I'm asking her, what does she need? And with that self-love that I've been giving back to this inner child of mine, I have learned to listen to what she wants, to communicate with her, to talk to her as if she's in the room with me. I do it when I'm working out with the workout that you've given me. I do it when I'm doing good things. I do it when I'm setting boundaries. And just the last time we had a session, I told you, I have learned or have grown to the point where as my boundaries are expanding to protect me, I'm noticing that I'm making space for not just that 8-year-old version of me, but the 12-year-old, the 14-year-old, all of these versions of me, and I'm watching them do the things they always wanted to do. There she is playing with her dolls. There's that one doing what she wants. Everything that I wasn't allowed to do because I didn't have a safe space with my mom and with certain situations, I am reliving and fixing, if you will. And that self-love that I'm giving to me, all of us, is coming back out now. And that is when I realized I don't really have the need for the food that used to be the swap out, the swap opportunity, if you will, for that emotional gap that I had.
Yeah, I mean, that's so true. And I've seen the major changes that you've made, especially recently. And you really opened up a whole new part of yourself. And it's been really magical to see what you've accomplished with all your hard work. And that introspection is really beautiful.
She's
It
a
has been
beautiful
amazing.
butterfly.
Mm-hmm.
It's been amazing. It's not easy, and it's not going to end. I have to be diligent with it and be aware of it all of the time. It has been life altering. I see the value in it, and I'm giving it everything I can. Every time I pass by, I try to contribute something to it so that I can keep growing that part of it. And I'm learning that boundaries are a good thing for me, and boundaries aren't keeping people out. Boundaries are teaching people how to come in a way that's going to be safe and fair for both of us.
That's perfectly said. Yep. Safe and fair. That's wonderful. Yep. And, you've done a remarkable job now being very open. I don't know if it's just your age or, as you get older and time goes on, people start sometimes, not always, but sometimes get a little bit fed up with the life they've lived, and they're willing to, do that hard work, the introspection, because a lot of people run from it. And I try to talk people out of seeing me, because I said, look, if you want to get to the core of your issues, it takes work. If you just want to play and want to talk about workouts and basically eating kale and brown rice, we can do that. And it's not that that's bad. But as you said earlier, it's really changing what's up here that really made the difference for you. Not that eating your kale and your brown rice and eating healthy didn't. That made you healthier and your blood pressure went down, you lost some weight and you felt better. But to get to the core of your addictions and why you're soothing, you're medicating with these processed foods, that's what we really worked on.
Yeah, the food was, I'd liken it to triage. Whenever there is a, catastrophic event, the first thing is triage. And the food, changing the food is what got me to kind of anchor myself down and get some sense of control. It may not have been ideal. It was white knuckling for a long time, but I managed to bring the weight down. And with every success, it gives you more incentive to continue. And with that incentive, I continued on. I didn't do much exercise. It is the food. And I watched Shayda for so many years. She was just so amazing in the way she did it. And she created these amazing recipes that I love any opportunity to get. And with that, I managed to build up some success. It's kind of like savings. I had a little bit of savings put away. Now I can turn around and focus on this other part. That's what worked for me. I don't know that that's the right path for everybody, but because I just needed to feel like I was in control of something for once in my life. But at the same time, I'm not trying to control. I just needed to feel like some part of me was, one of the hatches was battened out. I needed something there.
Right. And before I want to ask Shayda, I want to ask Rebecca a little bit about exercise, but was there any questions that popped up yet?
Yes, I think we've gotten some questions. I'm going to have Erin go through Erin, how many questions do we have?
Yeah.
We have a few questions, but you're going to need to
Okay.
talk a little louder. So maybe about 6?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's start with the first question.
So this one's for JP. So we all need to go through the hard stuff to find our why.
Well, you don't need to go to the hard stuff to find your why. No, it's just the hard stuff is what's going to ultimately set you free. Finding your why, that's when you're working with me or something, we're kind of going through some questions and a little bit of introspection to figure out what moves you. Remember this, that most people move toward pleasure and away from pain. That's normal for survival. We move toward pleasure and move away from pain. Most people don't want to move toward pain and they want pleasure. That's not always in your best interest, because if you're a drug addict and you get off your drugs, do you feel better or do you feel worse when you're getting off drugs? You feel worse. But are you getting better or getting worse? You're getting better, but feeling worse. Now, if you're a drug addict, you get off drugs and you go back to drugs, do you feel better or you feel worse? You feel better back on drugs, but you're getting worse. So it's kind of complicated. We go through some questions but you don't need to go through the pain to feel or to find your whys. And when I say pain, look at it's not like, you're just screaming, in pain, but it's like, these are some, you're basically what I'm doing in a loving and gentle way is I'm holding a mirror up and I'm saying, this is Rebecca, this is Shayda. Let's be honest. You're not Santa Claus, you're not Tinkerbell. You thought you were, but you're not. You're really Shayda and you're really Rebecca. And you've been believing you're somebody that you're not. And I just am honest about it and say, look at, this is who you really are. There's nothing wrong with that. And especially when people have had trauma, my gosh, anybody who's in pain is going to be an addict of some sort because nobody wants to be in pain. But there's ways to lessen your pain that are safer and healthier that don't have the consequences.
Absolutely.
Very good. Okay, Erin, what's our next question?
So are portions ever discussed for carbs like legumes and grains?
Well, do you want to talk? Give us your take on that, Rebecca, and then I'll mention it. What worked for you?
I can honestly say, so last time I did portions was when I wasn't plant-based and I was probably weighing over 300 at that point. And I went to go see the nutritionist after I popped a kneecap in some cardio kickboxing class I had no business being in at 300 pounds. And I sat there with the nutritionist and got a piece of chicken no bigger than your palm and a half a cup of rice. And I was just sitting there taking these notes and going, okay, I did it a couple of times. I was like, I can't do this. This is not a sustainable way of life. I can't. And, we moved into the unprocessed world and, we did the AJ challenge thing, Shayda, where I met you and you became a part of my world. And we learned about the power of all of the beautiful foods that we like, vegetables, fruits, nuts, all the stuff that we eat. And some of them we don't have to worry about the calories because you can eat so much more of them. It's a great swap out. Do I want something that's processed that's going to give me this much, or do I want this big bowl of veggies and grains and all this stuff? I learned you don't need to measure if you're eating the right foods. What is it that you're putting into your body? Now, people always tell me, oh my gosh, you eat carbs? Yes, I do. I am not a keto person. Keto is just a glorified Atkins, in my opinion. Yes, there's all these articles about these things, but I saw what Atkins did to people and to their kidneys and to their health. And if you're doing keto, I'm not shaming. All I'm trying to say is it won't work for me. My cholesterol will shoot up in a heartbeat, but you can't. The number of calories you're taking in. Calories are calories are calories. The one thing that has never changed from when I was 14 years old watching Covert Daily on PBS. He was talking about the same thing. Nothing has changed. Calories in, calories out. It is math. You can never change math. 3,500 calories is 1 pound. So if I really want to feel full, how many calories can I put into my body and not make, you have to know what your daily amount of calories that you burned, et cetera. I figured all of that out. And now that I'm doing a little more movement because JP's got me on a very a safe and easy to adhere to exercise plan, I get more. So does that help answer that as far as food? I don't measure.
Yeah.
That at the end of the day, I don't measure. I just eat, which is great because I love to eat.
I think one of the things that people are trying to allude to is that the question I always get is, can everybody eat unlimited volumes of rice and potatoes?
No.
I think that's the question. And I agree with you on that.
In my experience, now remember, I've taught clients for 37 years. Okay. So that's kind of a long time, I think. So in my 37 years of working with clients, I have not found that to be true with everybody. As a matter of fact, most people coming into a so-called weight loss program already have endocrine problems. So not everything's working perfectly in terms of metabolism. So I haven't found everybody has the ability to eat unlimited amounts of potatoes and rice. Now, Shayda, what's your take on that?
Well, for me, it doesn't work eating unlimited amounts of potatoes and rice. So I can eat unlimited fruits and vegetables, whether it's raw or steamed, not a problem. Even beans, I could eat beans. But when it comes to rice and potatoes, I'm not that person that can eat unlimited amounts. So I personally love sequencing once I learn how to sequence. And I will try to build my plate starting with my a lot of salads, a lot of vegetables, steamed vegetables, and then I'll add some potatoes or rice to it. And that's how I do it. But even back in the day when you were talking about portion control, I was over portion control. I couldn't do it. And that's why the freedom of this way of eating, it just made total sense to me. That's why I think it's an easy lifestyle to stick to. I can stick to this plan. So I am not that person that can eat unlimited rice and potatoes.
Right. And Rebecca, how are you feeling about that? Have you been able to eat unlimited rice and potatoes?
I think I am one of those people that's fortunate enough that I can have quite a bit of them and it doesn't impact me the same way. But I don't, just for the sake of, even though I can, it still sits with me because it is a solid start. The starch just sits there. So I try to balance. I like to have more vegetables, but I have, I've noticed that I do handle them pretty well. And, I've got Mexican in me. I'm Mexican American, so I eat a lot of beans, I eat a lot of rice, and, I eat potatoes and I'll throw salsa on them. That's my thing. So, but I try not to overindulge in them. They did get me through. Again, they were part of that getting me to a point where I could feel like I got some success behind me, and they helped me to feel full. However, I do notice that as I'm getting older, because I'm 51 now, that there are some foods that make me feel lighter than others, and potatoes do tend to make me feel kind of heavier.
Yeah. Either way, we should all be eating starches are fine. Whether
Absolutely.
everyone can eat them unlimited, I haven't seen that. But you may be a person, whoever's asking the question, you kind of have to figure it out yourself.
It's trial and error.
It is trial. I mean, you look at me and you look at Rebecca, two different spectrums. I don't eat unlimited, but she does. So, and it works for both of us.
Yeah.
Right. What's our next question?
What about not being supported by your family? With the holidays ahead, I'll probably be alone due to the lack of food choices.
That's a tough one.
You guys should answer that because you both have dealt with that.
Well, thankfully, my family has been very supportive. So I've been lucky in that fact that my mom, my aunt, everybody has, once I jumped on board with this, everybody was very, very supportive. Now, I did lose friends over this because at the beginning, and it's okay if they were going to lose me because of my food choices, that's fine, they can go. Some friends were hesitant and they're like, okay, we're going to keep an eye on it. But now all my friends are on board. So I've been lucky enough to have that support. But I think the biggest thing is if your family is not supportive of you, I think you really need to sit down and have a heart-to-heart talk with them and explain to them why you're doing this and that you really do need their support. That's just my opinion.
Yeah, for me, with my family, luckily, or I don't know, once I got divorced, I kind of severed myself from the ex-husband and a lot of people. They were supportive. However, whenever there would be family gatherings, every animal was represented on the table, and that never sat well with me. They made sure to fry it, cover it in cheese, and do everything they can to it. It was not supportive to me, especially when you put it all in front of me. My family is my friends. It's Shayda, it's her mom, it's Kathy, it's AJ. There's a lot of people in our group that are very supportive, but I do have a lot of friends from junior high that I'm still very much in touch with. They support me. They don't give me any kind of difficulty. They try my food, and whenever we get together, they respect my choices, which is all I'm asking for. I'm not asking for, you don't have to do what I do. I would love for you to do it, but at the very least, just respect what I do, and they do. So, and I always bring something if we're doing like a potluck thing. I always bring something to share. I always bring something for myself, but in general, it's harder with some people than others to have discussions with family. I'm luckily in a situation where I don't have to have a talk with my family because I don't hang out with them. The only person that I truly hang out with is my father, and my dad will roll with anything. He loves going to see Shayda and her mom, and he'll sit and he'll have a vegan meal and be just as happy as any other meal.
And one thing I want to say about this, in all my years of working with clients, I can say that the stronger that you are emotionally and the more self-love you have, the easier this is for you. So For Shayda and Rebecca, I don't think this was easy at first, but as they got into the program and they start developing more self-love and more toughness and, the ability to intermittent fast and delay, as you said, Rebecca, gratification, that is one of the things that makes you stronger. And then you're not influenced by people who are trying to, sink you. They're shooting torpedoes at you, trying to sink you. At first, for most people that are younger and are kind of weaker and don't have a self-esteem really built yet, oh yeah, then they're going to sink you. So you have to keep working. As I told Shayda, people who love themselves, what don't they do, Shayda?
They don't hurt themselves.
Right. Yeah. So if you love yourself, you don't hurt yourself. And guess what? If you love yourself, you don't let others hurt yourself either.
Yep.
But that being said, it's not always easy to love yourself if you were raised in a traumatic environment where you were, basically cast aside and you weren't taught self-love and you were in some ways, physically or mentally abused. Of course, I'd understand why you'd cave in. But we're here to tell you that you have to keep working on that self-love, and you are deserving of love, as everyone on this planet is, and every being is deserving of self-care, self-love, and to be respected and not be hurt, for sure.
Amen.
Absolutely. What's our next question?
So this is for all three to answer.
Okay.
Everyone talks about how hard it is, which I agree. Is it fear of change, of dealing with hard issues, etc., that makes it so challenging, do you think? So is it fear that makes it challenging?
A fear of what?
Fear of change, fear of dealing with hard issues. They're the examples they provided.
JP, I'll let you take.
Yeah, I mean, for most of the clients, and Rebecca is touched on this already today, it's to be honest with you, it's the fear of the truth. I can't tell you how many clients I've had that didn't want to know the truth about themselves. They were terrified. And much of what they thought was the truth, they thought was going to be bad and terrible. They've come to find out, oh my gosh, I'm really not a bad person. I'm a good person. But what was done to me was bad. And then that kind of sets them free. When you have a little kid that was raised by the Ku Klux Klan, and at 15, he's throwing bricks through people's windows. Once you catch the kid and you're a police officer, are you really that angry with a child that was raised by the Ku Klux Klan from birth? Or do you have the intelligence to say, oh my gosh, this wasn't the child's fault. This was the parents' fault who raised them this way. So yeah, it's a tough question, what you're saying. It's generally the fear of the truth. And many times the truth isn't what you think it is. But Rebecca, why don't you answer that? Because we've worked on that so much, and you probably know better than anyone.
You touched on it quite well. It is fear of tapping into something that is unpleasant. Nobody wants to deal with anything that is going to bring you discomfort. It's fear of change to me, because change, even if it's uncomfortable, there are people who have a limp and they're comfortable, they get used to it. We get so used to being in pain or in a state of dis-ease that we live with it and we think it's comfort. It's kind of the same reason, years back I was thinking of adopting, and I was learning a lot about the children, and it's like you'll find that the kids would rather go back to abusive parents than be with a loving fostering environment through a foster parent. And it's because you get used to what you get used to, no matter how bad it could be for you. We get used to whatever it is that's hurting us. We get used to being overweight. I got used to having bad knees. I got used to breathing for my life when I went up 4 stairs. I got used to high blood pressure, sweating. There were so many things that I just got used to, and the thought of switching that and dealing with my childhood issues and dealing with pain and giving up the foods that were loving me, because that was all that was there to love me at the time. So because of that, it's changed. So I guess it's fear of change, fear of something different. It's not going to be easy. If it were easy, everybody would be doing it, but it's not. The thing is, I had to decide for myself, am I ready to step out of this, and am I ready to do what it's going to take? Yeah, there was some teeth gritting and some white knuckling to get through the part that wasn't easy, but I learned that once I started to put the effort towards going towards the better side for me, where I'm at now, it didn't take as much effort. It was just slow and steady. It wasn't something that was going to happen overnight. I was putting so much effort into just accepting where I was at, and that wasn't getting me anywhere. It was like Sisyphus. I was pushing that rock up the hill and it just rolled right back down onto me, and I wasn't getting anywhere with it. So, I mean, that's my take. Shayda, how do you feel about it?
I totally, no, you hit the nail on the head. I totally agree with you. We get very set and comfortable in our misery, and you're like, okay, do I really want to get out of this? And there's a part of you that really does want to break away from this, but there's also that part of you that's scared, that's like, oh my God, what if it doesn't work? And you just have to come to terms with all that. And you have to get to, for me, I had to get to the point, call it, hitting rock bottom. Maybe that's what it's going to take, but something's going to have to just jolt you to say, you know what, enough is enough. And I'm done. I'm going to step to the other side. I'm going to get help. And okay, yeah, it's scary. It's life-changing. It's, I'm scared, but you know what? Just look at that. Look at the light at the end of the tunnel. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be great. There's going to be some hard parts to get through, but man, when you get out on the other side, it's just like, oh my God, this was so worth it. So yeah, fear of change is definitely there, but you're going to have to, like you said, knuckle through it, just get through it.
Well, in a psychological level, a lot of people that I've worked with who have had abuse are drawn to abusers, especially in the dating realm. And it's because they're comfortable with being abused. And if they went with a different man, they don't know what to expect. So that's the fear of the unknown. And it sounds so bizarre, but it's actually more comforting for them to know they're going to be abused because they at least know what's coming than what's not coming. They don't know. It sounds crazy, but I see it all the time.
Yeah, I can understand that. We have two more questions. Erin, if you want to give those to us.
So is mindset the key to reaching health/food relationships/weight loss goals? So is mindset the key to reaching your goals?
Want me to take?
Go ahead, you take that, Rebecca, because you're.
Go ahead, Rebecca.
It is mindset is what's going to give you that Shayda's word, oomph, to really just be ready to take it on and tackle it. But you got to follow through with the physical part of it, meaning doing the work. So yes, your mindset to me is the foundation that you're going to build this success on, because that's what's going to keep you going when you're laying in bed at night and food's calling you, or when you're working out and you're like, I can't do this anymore, or when you're having a bad day emotionally and you're like, I don't want to do this. Mindset to me is important, but it's also, you've got to act on it. You have to do something, because you can't lie there and think yourself into a healthy body or a healthy way of life. You can lie there and think yourself into a healthier mentality, but you need to follow through. If you're like, I'm great, I'm healthy, and you're powering down Snickers all day, that's not going to change it. The mindset goes hand in hand with the actual follow through and activity, but the mindset will give you that ability to launch yourself into the success.
Perfect.
Well
Yeah.
said. Well said.
That reminds me, that's kind of like, Rebecca, have you ever been to a concert when the performer starts to sing and the audience sings the song for them?
Yep.
You said everything that I would say. It was perfect.
That was great.
Exactly. And you know what? It is true. Both of these ladies here, the one thing that we worked on the most in terms of percentage is mindset. It's all mindset. We weren't sitting there talking about food all the time because they knew what to eat. Sure, I could fine tune some things, but the last thing us all have talked about is food. It's like we don't even bring that up.
You really, looking back on our journey, JP, I don't really recall you talking about food at all, to be honest. I really don't.
You have the basics. Once you have the basics, that's what you need. It's the foundation. You don't need to be going into that anymore. Your issues weren't the food. When I start with somebody who their issue is the food, then that's all I talk about. I never even mention the mindset at all.
Yeah, you're sneaky that way.
All right. Last question.
Last question.
All right. Trying lots of times to eat plant-based and failing often ends with me feeling terrible about myself. Did either of you feel this way?
So if they ate something bad, they beat themselves up?
Yeah. So trying lots of times to eat plant-based and failing often, and then I feel terrible. Did that happen to you guys?
Well, that's where the mindset also comes in, and that's where love and compassion comes in. And you got to stop beating yourself up. And as you guys know, I pretty much say it's always one bite at a time, one meal at a time. And, you know, Rebecca touched on this also today. You know, you have a bad meal. Okay, fine. It's done. It's over. Put it behind you. Now, the next thing that goes into your mouth, get back on track. Have that broccoli, have that kale, have that, you know, you can't sit there and continually keep beating yourself up. At least that's the way I approach it for myself. Okay, if I did something bad, fine, it's over. My mom always says, okay, did you enjoy it? Did you have fun? Is it over now? I get back on track again. So, you know, it's like you fall off the horse. What are you going to do? Never get back on again? No, you're going to get back on the horse again. And you're just going to keep doing it over and over until before you know it, you're on and you don't even think about the other stuff anymore.
Yep. Mama was right. And you got to just dust yourself off, get up, you know, hug yourself. Before anything else, just hug yourself and say, hey, it's all good. Like, how would you treat a child that made a mistake? Are you going to shame them for doing something that they did just because that's all they know how to do to comfort themselves? You just hug them and tell them, hey, it's okay. It's not going to happen again. I love you. Here's a kiss. Now we have to get up. Now I'm going to teach you the right way to do this so that the next time you do that much better. That's how kids learn. And sometimes for myself, that's how I'm retraining myself, is with each time that I make a mistake, and I'm finding they're further between and they're lesser and lesser type offenses, that I'm just loving myself a little bit more because there's some kind of strain that goes back to that inner child. Why did I do this? And each time I'm hugging myself, loving myself, dusting myself off, getting back up and getting on that horse Shayda's talking about. And I don't look back. I don't dwell on it. I don't think about it. I don't worry about the calories in my body. I just roll because it doesn't make a difference. What's in front of you is what makes a difference. Don't worry about what's back there.
Very well said. I totally agree. JP, your thoughts on it?
Well, I think we could just have the Rebecca and Shayda show from now on because you guys are answering everything perfectly. I just want to remind the whoever wrote this that you're using a term, you're plant-based. So it's plant-based. You're not saying plant exclusive. Some of us are plant exclusive. When you first start out and you're new, it's plant-based. So you're basing your diet on plants and you may go astray a little bit. You don't beat yourself, but you're plant-based. And always remember that all of us started where you were. Whoever's writing this, we all started that way. For many of us, it was a challenge. You know, I mean, I've been vegan close to 40 years now, but I think, well, I know when I started, I did it for ethical reasons. So it was never a challenge to not have animal products. That was never in question. But when some of the processed foods came out, when I was a kid, I liked to have those. Because those were tasty, but they were still vegan. So it's all a continuum. Just keep loving yourself and being kind to yourself and keep just putting more plants in.
And I also want to talk about, and I think Rebecca uses some of these products, and there's products that you taught us, JP, by Health Force, that, you know, if we fall off track, we go back to these. And I brought some of it out to show you guys. It's the Vitamineral Green. They have greener grasses. There's the chlorella. So there's all of these products that, you know, you can use. Like, okay, you ate something bad. Okay, it's okay. It's over. Just get the Vitamineral Green, blend it in water, and alkaline yourself again, and get, you know, go back to your daily life. These products are fantastic, and I know JP, Rebecca, I know you use this too. If you guys want to talk a little bit about Health Force, I think they've got some phenomenal stuff and tools that can help us.
Yeah, well, JP, please.
Yeah, one of the main things is you brought up a really good point. And part of what I teach is when you go off the program or go off whatever your program is, in a loving, kind way, it's a great idea for your brain mentally to overcompensate now by having a little extra bigger salad than you would have, or a bigger green smoothie, or in your case, Shayda, you said it perfectly, have some extra chlorella tablets, have an extra vitamin mineral green drink, you know, add it to water and drink. In this way, you're really countering some of the negativity that was done. And you're mentally, the key thing is you're mentally saying, wow, I might have went off, but wow, if I went down to here, now I'm having all these extra greens. So gosh, I'm actually even a little bit higher than I was before. I didn't go here. I went equal and a little higher. And also remember, when you take vitamin mineral green, just put it in your water bottle and just sip it throughout the day. And it's a great way to counter the craving for sweets, because it really alkalizes your palate. And if your palate's always alkaline, you're not going to really have that same craving for sweets.
I love this product. I was introduced to this product probably about 10 years ago, and I love this little travel size. And honest to God, I do not leave home without it when I travel. Every trip that I go on, this comes with me, and I have it every single day, because unfortunately, when you're traveling, you are gonna, you're out of your environment. You're gonna come across foods that, by the smell, or you're walking, or it's going to tempt you. And I always have this in my water, and I'm drinking it all day long. And it's just been, for me, it's been fantastic. Rebecca, do you use any of this product?
Yes, the greens and the chlorella. I was telling you guys earlier, the greens, like you say, it really does, when you drink it, it's just kind of like it sends an alert to the brain, like, oh, I'm doing good things for myself. And now I get the connection, because when I'm working out, JP wants me to tell younger me, hey, I'm doing this for you. I love you. Doing the greens is kind of another way to say to yourself, hey, I love you. I'm giving you all good stuff. I'm showering you with some protective stuff on the inside. Just like I shower my body, I shower the insides. The other thing with the chlorella, it's good for you because it's always, anything green like that, it's always a good thing to put it in our bodies to just pump up that level.
Yeah, and Dr. Greger just did a big piece on chlorella at nutritionfacts.com or .org, which one it is, but you can look that up too. But yeah, Shayda, Health Force is all in glass too. So it's really such great quality, their products, and it's run by an amazing woman that just does an amazing job of creating these products. Her and her husband, James Sheridan, actually created a lot of those products too. And they're just very healthy for you, and they're just made with a great energy.
I would love to get them on the show so we can share with our audience their phenomenal products, and they can tell us their story, how they started and how they brought this company up. And I think it would be fantastic to have them on here.
I just posted their website.
Oh, you did?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. So JP, I know you've got some exciting news for us coming up for next year. You want to share that?
Yes, we have the Pillars of Health Retreat, Memorial Day weekend. So that's going to be in Chicago. Now,
yay! We have to give a shout out to that.
It is an amazing retreat, and it's very small and intimate. So the site isn't totally up yet, but you can take a sneak peek if you go to johnpierre.com and then /retreat. And there at the very bottom of the page, I'd fill out your name and email. And as soon as the tickets are available, you'll be one of the first persons to know. But it's a very small conference. We might have 50 to 70 people. We try to keep it very intimate because we're doing all the work that Shayda and Rebecca are talking about, all the introspection. We're doing movement throughout the day. We're talking, we have classes on how to develop laser beam focus, how to create a morning and evening ritual. And then we also bring in a therapist that's a trauma trained therapist. And we talk about different modalities about trauma and how to heal yourself. And then we do yoga. And we'll be talking about one of my favorite topics in the world, which is the 8 limbs of yoga. And as you know, I've taught in India before. And you have to realize when you go to India to study yoga, the asanas or the postures are really that's like a small portion of what yoga is. It's such a small portion. When you really understand the philosophy behind yoga, that's where all the information lies, is not so much in the postures. So definitely check it out, johnpierre.com /retreat.
It's in the chat, and it's / high on the right, low on the left, folks. So it's right there in the chat if you can see that. And it's really cute. I like it. Or I'm looking at it right now, JP.
And you're going to be able to meet Rebecca, and you're going to be able to meet Shayda there, and have some of their amazing energy rub off on you.
And possibly Aaron may join us as well, God willing.
Oh, wow.
maybe.
Okay.
But that would be fantastic. Oh my God, I can't thank you both enough for tonight. This has been absolutely amazing. It's been a wonderful talk. Thank you, JP. Thank you, Rebecca.
Thank you.
And I would love to continue this conversation even more as we get into other things. And I think we could do a whole show with love and compassion, because it's really, those are 2 tough things. I think they're tough. Loving ourselves. It took me a long time to love myself, but still working on it. I don't know about you, Rebecca, but I'm still working on it.
I will forever be working on it. And the thing is, you find the right team, learn the food. We learned all of that stuff. I have good support like you. JP has been the missing piece to that. And just remember, like JP loves, JP listens, JP liberates. So that's my slogan for the day. He's always there for you, and I am grateful that I was able to start back up, and it was the right timing for me, JP. Thank you.
Yeah, you guys have put in the work. I have to give you credit. And I'll say this, and I've said it before, you will be better instructors than me because you went through all this stuff. So you really know what it feels like to have an addiction. You know what it feels like to have self-esteem issues and doubt. I can only just give you the experience of working with clients and the science behind it and motivate you and so forth. But you as instructors really have something to offer that many other instructors can't, is you were there, you overcame it, and you're still a work in progress, but you really have such great, valuable information, and you both have become such more loving and kind people. And I just love seeing it all the time.
Well,
Me
thank
too.
you. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And I'd like to thank everyone for watching another episode tonight. And thank you, John Pierre, for being here with us tonight. Thank you, Rebecca Martinez, for being here with us. And thank you, Erin, for being here with
yes.
us. Today.
Thank you.
It's been absolutely a pleasure having all three of you guys here with us. And remember, guys, before we sign off, it's one bite at a time, one meal at a time. Thank you again for joining us tonight. Until next time.
Thank you, Shayda.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Oh, yeah.